welcome to another edition of Nice Solo, So What? Now I'm going to feel the need at the beginning of each one of these videos to explain to you the title again, at least for a little while until everyone gets the hang of it. Okay, that's not a smart aleck comment. The point of it is, it's a great solo. So what does that mean to me? Remember, like we always say, if we just learn the solo, it's not any good to us unless we play In My Life. But if I learn the concepts behind what the soloist is doing, I can reapply that to any song I want to. All right? So, having said that, this solo was played by the great George Martin. All right? And I mean, not a lot of people know that. It's pretty cool. Who was the longtime producer of the Beatles. He does the harpsichord solo in this song. And first things first, on the solo, I've got my Pog 2 set up with a couple octave manipulations to try to get close to that sound. You know, it's whatever. I'm gonna turn that off though, so you're not confused by any weird sounds coming out. So from now on, we're just gonna go with the sound of a lovely 335 running through a splong. Jumping right into it, the first thing we need to know in any soloing situation, the most important thing is to know what you're soloing over the top of. Here are the chords. Okay, so it's going to be an A, an E, F sharp minor, A7, D, D minor, and A. Each one of these chords gets 2 beats each. So if you want to practice with a loop, or if you want to use the loop that I'm going to provide for you, the backing track, it's just going to be 2 beats each. Just like that. Very simple. Okay, here's the problem. When you move over chords that quickly, it's going to be difficult to find notes that make sense, that don't sound like you're just kind of rambling over one pattern over and over. All right, that's what's so great about this solo. George Martin clearly outlined each chord, and we're going to get to that, but he also did it in a way that wasn't just mathematical. He didn't go root third fifth, root third fifth, root third fifth, root third fifth on every single chord. He did anchor in those chord tones, no doubt, but he did it in a way that was very, very melodic. So the 2 sections that I want to look at in particular, I'm going to teach you the solo, but the 2 big takeaways from this are going to be his use of scales, number 1, and his use of theme, number 2. All right, and we're going to talk about those in just a second at the end after we learn the solo. So first, let's get into it. Here's what we have. Now remember, this is a harpsichord solo. I'm going to be playing it on a guitar, so you can find a different finger pattern if you want to. It's totally up to you, but this is the way I choose to play it. I'm going to start with my A and B on 10 and 12 B. I'm going to go down to 9 E, back to my 10 B, which is the note A. Then I'm going to do a hammer on, pull off, or a pull off and hammer on from 12 to 10, back to 12. Straight up to 12B, down to 9G, back to 12B. So that section is. So you can see already when we're on that A chord, he's going to be playing that A, B, C sharp, which is just part of the A major scale. If I just kept going, it would be all the way up the A major scale. So that's just outlining the first few notes of A major. When I go to the E, that's when he goes. And notice he's just going to be playing the root, the flat 7 of E, the 5th of E, and then the octave of the root. So it's just outlining more chord tones. So now I'm up here on the next section. I'm going to start with 16D. I'm going to go to 13G, 14G. Then I'm going to pull off and hammer on from 14 to 12 back to 14 on B. Now that's going to outline that nice F sharp minor. Notice right up here. There again, I'm just taking in my F sharp minor scale. If I just kept going, notice the notes. That's all I'm playing. So from there, I'm going to move over to my A7 chord. Now this is going to be treated a little differently than we did when we played that A major at the beginning. Here's why. It has a note that does not belong in this key. That note is G. The G is the note that makes it an A7. That one. Well, what do you think George Martin does when he goes to solo and he hears that A7? Oh, I have a note that doesn't belong in a key. And like any good lad, when you hear a note that doesn't belong in the key, in a chord, that's the note you should target. That's the note you should exploit, which is why he goes to and actually lets that just sit on that G for a minute. What he does is he goes 15, 17 on B, and then 15 on E, which is G. That note is G. So that phrase together is. Now as we move to the D, check this out. You thought Eric Johnson invented these licks. Well, George Martin played them first. And there you go. So what we're doing on the D chord is we're going to start on the F sharp, which of course, if you see the octave, it's just the third of D. We're going to go to the E, which is 17B. That's the 2. Back to the third, which is 14E. Now we're going to go to 15B, which is the root. Now we're going to go back to the third again. Every time we hit a note, we go back and get this common F sharp up here. So it's straight up to C sharp, which is the 7, the major 7. In the key of A, the D is a major 7 chord. And then back to the F sharp. So it's and then a kind of unusual note to end on, but very nice. It's a B, which is the 6 in the D. Oops, sorry. And then, that right there tells me, wait a second, another note that does not belong in my key, I must have another chord that doesn't belong in my key, and sure enough, I have a D minor. And guess what? George Martin plays an F, which of course is the third of D minor. So you have and what you're going to do there is just go 13, 12, 13 on E, 10E, 12B. That's going to clearly outline the change from major. Notice I have on the F sharp, my F sharp there, and then when it goes to minor, I have that F. Oh man, now all of a sudden I've got my F. So, the next part he's going to do is going to go over the top of the A again, and he's going to play. It's going to be the same theme. Remember I said earlier that there was going to be some themes here, and this is going to be the same theme as far as picking pattern, well, or playing pattern for us, and it's going to be 12E is going to be our pivot note we're going to go back to every time. 12E, 15B, back to 12E, 14B, back to 12E, straight up to 12B, back to 12E, and 14G. So it's all together now what we have is and then there's one more little part, and that's going to be a hammer on, pull off from, or sorry, a pull on and a hammer off. It's so, a pull off and a hammer on, it's It's backwards, which is really cool. It's going to be, from what guitars normally do, it's backwards, I should say. It's going to be 12 to 10, back to 12. Then 9B to 12B, or 9E, excuse me, to 12B. Now that's one full pass through the chord changes. From there, you literally repeat everything the same way. Until you get to the very last A chord. This time, you don't do this. This time you go E12, and then you're going to have to roll up. I like doing a double hammer on there from 9, 10 to 12 on E. Then you're going to go back to 9E to 10B down to 9G. Notice we're just outlining an A triad. So it's, there's our major 7 straight down. So you just go straight down from 9G to 9B. Now I'm going to have to do a finger switch here. Normally you would go to this A with the middle finger. But because of the run that's getting ready to come up, I'm going to shift to my pinky finger, which might be a little odd for you. But here's why. Straight down a major scale. How about that? 10B, 10, 9, 7, all on B. 10, 9, 7. 9, 7, 6 on G, and then go to the D string for 9 and 7. Now, that run is lightning fast. And I noticed I was having to work on that a little bit before I would do that performance there, and I thought, why is this giving me a hard time? I got to reading a little bit. Apparently it gave Mr. Martin a hard time. And he actually slowed the recording down, played the line, and then sped the recording back up because it was... And what you have to do, now you can try to pick that. It's just really fast. But what I find is if you do it legato, it rolls off really nicely. All right. Just like that. So now all together slowly. Repeat. All right. Now, let's talk about the concepts of this solo. Let's talk about what we can take from it. We know how to play it, and remember, just hit the rewind button as many times as you need to get that part of it down. It's important to get it down so that you know what to rob from him in the most polite of ways. All right, again, the main things that I wanted to talk about was his use of scales, and then his use of theme, which I thought was brilliant. When I sat down and analyzed this solo, there's a reason it sticks out in my brain, and it's because of his use of themes. The scales that he uses makes it sound very pleasant to the ear. You hear A, you hear E, you hear F sharp minor, you hear D, A7. Ah, there's my A7. Then you hear D. Then you hear D minor. Then you hear A. Such a well crafted harmonic solo because it's just really polite. It's really nice. But I think the kicker is his themes. So pay attention to this. When you first start out, you have theme number 1, let's call it, which is... Now listen to this. The exact same theme in a different key. So if I say ba ba da 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 ba da da da, you hear that same theme coming up again for the second round. Now remember, this is crucial in developing familiarity with the listener. So the listener hears it and says, I recognize that theme. And that makes it super accessible to people, which makes it memorable. George was a great player. He played Rocky Raccoon piano. He did all kinds of great stuff. He reharmonized Because for the Beatles. I mean, he was a phenomenal musician, and he probably could have done anything he wanted to, and he could have just laid out a slew of notes. But instead, he said, I'm going to develop an idea. I'm going to repeat that idea. I'm going to have the theme, but it's going to be in a different set of notes. That would be like a rhythmic theme. But it's also harmonic. If you notice, he goes. It's the same 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. It's different keys though. So it's 1, 2, 3 in major, in the A, and then 1, 2, 3 over the F sharp minor. It's very cool. Very, very cool ideas. But that's not all. Then you have theme number 2, which is going to be that whole idea of high note and then walk down the scale, come back to the high note, walk down the scale, this repeated pattern. Notice, wait a second, it's the same theme. So when we're using this idea in our improvisation, that's got so many areas you can, like so many pathways you can go down. So think of anything. If I wanted to go, now that's just all, let's say I'm over just one A minor chord. I'm moving that theme around, just trying to play with it. This is all he did. It's genius. Now what happens if my chord goes from A minor to G and I want to go? No idea why I just picked kind of a reggae sound. But if I did that, I could say, well, here's my A. There's my G. Or I could go to a different one. A. G. Or I can even skip octaves. It's a cool idea to use a theme and then reuse it in a different key. Such a cool thing. Isolating chord tones is so important. Now, especially when the chord tones don't belong in the key. Now, what I mean by that is you have 7 chords in a key. That's it. That doesn't mean that's the only 7 you can use. It just means that's all you have in the key. So when somebody does you a favor and tosses you a solo section that has a chord in it that's not in the key, your job as a soloist is to exploit the full out of whatever notes those are that are not key related. In this case, we have a D minor that's not in the key, and we have an A7 that's not in the key of A. All right, the A7 only has one note that's not in the key. It's the note G. Well, guess what? George Martin crushed that G as soon as it came up, and you should do that too. I'll show you some examples on that in a second. The other was the F in the D minor chord. So F sharp is in the key of A, F is not in the key of A. What did George Martin do when the D minor came up? He said, he crushed that A first thing. I mean the F first thing. Very, very, very cool use of his knowledge of theory there. All right? And it's not just a theoretical thing though, you can kind of feel it. It's excellent just to use your ear and feel out what's happening in the song and exploit that. Think about the solo section to Because We've Ended as Lovers by Jeff Beck, right? You have this C minor 7, this A flat major 7, this F minor, and then all of a sudden you've got this G major 7 that brings an F sharp into the key that just doesn't belong there. It's not in the key. And what does Beck do every time? He hits that F sharp in his solo. I know this is not a Jeff Beck thing, but it's the same principle. So isolate whatever does not belong in the key and exploit it. That's a great tool. It really makes you sound like you know what's up when it comes time to solo. All right, I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to put the jam track for this in the link below here, and you can just click on that and practice moving some of your own ideas around. Obviously learn the solo and then try to take some of his concepts and use them as your own. All right? After all, nice solo. So what? See you next time. Hey y'all, thanks for hanging out. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. You can also follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. See you next time.